And if the decision is bad for Ripple and XRP and crypto in general, it's going to cause, more than disruption. It's going to cause chaos. And I think we're all witnessing that chaos right now.
In today's video, Attorney John Deaton discussed the latest with the SEC Ripple XRP lawsuit, the recent summary judgments from Ripple and the SEC, and what's next for the procedural process, likelihood of a settlement soon.
When you think about it, when Bitcoin and the crypto market cap was, several hundred billion. I mean, it's not insignificant, but it didn't reach $1 trillion. Once it hits $1 trillion and then $2 trillion, at one point it reached $3 trillion. That's when people start paying attention. That's when the incumbents really start paying attention. And then all of this sort of comes to a head, especially on the regulatory front, because I'm a firm believer that we have a system, and Gary Gensler has actually talked about this when he was at MIT, where you have disruptive technology that's coming in and disrupting the incumbents of a half-century legacy banking system. It's going to cause, more than disruption. It's going to cause chaos. And I think we're all witnessing that chaos right now. We keep hearing, though, Ash, again, from a layperson's standpoint on all this economic data, we keep hearing about when will there be a decoupling, right? When the Fed's raising rates, it goes risk off, and Bitcoin and digital assets are risk assets. And then when we get more liquidity, as you're talking about, and they stop raising rates or they actually go into quantitative easing, then all of a sudden it's risk on, and that
right.
Digital assets will follow the NASDAQ. The real question is, you keep hearing about a theoretical decoupling when digital assets don't follow, the NASDAQ and the tech stocks. And that's what I'm waiting for, because I don't know if maybe it'll never happen, but we keep hearing about it. And a lot of people have hinted that we are slightly witnessing a decoupling. Well, listen, I'm not someone who tries to time the market. I learned a long time ago that, I can't. And so I'm a long-time investor with a long-time horizon. But I will admit that I am pleasantly surprised so far, knock on wood, that someone who is invested in Bitcoin, that it is acted better than one might have projected when you think about all the macro events and you think about this regulatory, pressure that we're seeing, where Coinbase gets Wells notices and Ethereum is implicated and all of these things. And
right.
It's held up better than a lot. I mean, there were a lot of people predicting 10,000 and sub 10,000 for Bitcoin. And maybe it could still happen with some kind of black swan event, but it seems to me that whatever the consensus is, we see an opposite result. And so I am a little bit pleasantly surprised that Bitcoin's held up. I mean, no one could have predicted the FTX and all of that was happening, that Bitcoin would be at 30,000 today. There's a lot of people who would have projected its death. We're witnessing a coordinated, and I don't believe this is a theory. I think it's been proven that there was coordination with the defunding of the banks, with the seizure of Signature Bank, with the buyer having to divest any crypto deposits, whoever was going to buy Signature Bank. We have the New York Attorney General suing KuCoin, calling ETH a security. You have the chairman of the SEC back when the merge happened, saying that the merge implicated securities laws and that ETH was implicated. We're witnessing an absolute in real time coordinated effort to damage this asset class, in my opinion. And my opinion is that part of it is, I think at this point, Ash, they've accepted that Bitcoin and certain digital assets are here to stay. Obviously, we can't say 20,000 tokens, right? But the major asset class, the Bitcoins, the ETH, the XRPs, all of them, they're here to stay. And I think we're witnessing regulatory pressure because you have incumbents who I believe are going to come in and try to gain some of that market share. You're witnessing the NASDAQ. At the same time that we're having all this regulatory pressure, you have the NASDAQ announcing they're going to custody Bitcoin and digital assets. Fidelity's been in it from the beginning. New York Bank of Mellon is talking about the custody of digital assets and offering it to their clients. And so it's very interesting times. And we're going to look back in a few years and be like, wow, that was something that we all lived through. We know that Gary Gensler and Elizabeth Warren, Senator Warren, have a very close relationship. In fact, Gensler's daughter works for Elizabeth Warren. We know that Elizabeth Warren, in an email, provided Gary Gensler with the questions and suggested answers at a Senate Banking Oversight Committee. These aren't theories, Ash. This is what I'm talking about has been shown. And you have a senior citizen.
What's the implication there?
Well, the implication is Senator Warren sits on the Banking Committee of the Senate, which provides oversight to the SEC. Her job on the Banking Committee is to oversee Gensler and the SEC's activities, to whether it's related to digital assets, whether it's related to FTX, whether it's related to Robinhood or any of the other Citadel, all those issues. And she sent an email with her questions beforehand to Gensler with suggested answers, asking, she doesn't, quote, want to put him in a tight spot. All right. You and I would be fired from our job if our job was to provide oversight, that we're the person we're providing oversight, we're giving them the suggested answers. And the reason I'm bringing that out is Senator Warren is up for re-election, and she launched an anti-crypto platform for re-election. And so it doesn't get any bigger than this, right, is what I'm getting at in the war. But as far as where we would start, I think we start, there with the fact that today is Ethereum. Let's start with Ethereum because today's a big day. Today is the upgrade, where there's going to be a staking of ETH is going to be able to be withdrawn, and how's that going to affect price or whatnot. And so these court battles that you and I and the rest of the world are witnessing is where we're going to get some kind of clarity. It's going to be judicial clarity as opposed to regulatory clarity. And so the battle will be won or lost in the court case, such as the Ripple case coming up. But it's interesting. And when you have an inept Congress, then you have a regulator who knows that he can engage in regulation by enforcement. And that's what we're witnessing. We're witnessing an SEC, Gary Gensler, saying, I'm going to go out and I'm going to call all these tokens securities, and nobody's going to stop me. And I mean, a lot of people took issue with his April Fools. He changed his profile on Twitter where he put on sunglasses and a quote that said, deal with it. I mean, personally, some people think that's fun and that's silly. I think it's sending a message which there's nothing you can do about it. You're going to have to live with it. This is what I'm doing. So it's going to be very fascinating. And I think that it causes more eyes to be on that Southern District, New York decision that we're waiting for in the Ripple case. And if the decision is bad for Ripple and XRP and crypto in general, it's going to gain more momentum for Gary Gensler and the SEC. If the judge stops them in their tracks and says this is overreach, this is government intrusion, and kind of slaps them down, then I think we're going to see maybe Gensler lose a lot of his political momentum. And now with Ripple, basically, Ash, we're at a point where the judge could decide the decision on summary judgment. For your audience, basically, Ripple has said to the judge, here's some paperwork. We don't need a jury because we win, and here's our arguments. The SEC has said the same. Judge, we don't need a jury to decide anything because we win. Here are the facts in the law. And now the judge then, of course, decides, does Ripple get an outright win? Does the SEC get an outright win? Or does she somehow give each side what the proverbial split the baby, so to speak, and say, hey, Ripple, you sold an investment contract during these years, but today you're sufficiently decentralized or whatever, and therefore ongoing and future sales of XRP are not implicated by the securities laws, and then that's the end of it? Or does she say we need a jury to decide certain facts because there's too many disputed facts? And that decision could come down while we're talking. I've said that generally speaking, when Judge Torres, I've looked at her previous cases, and when she's provided a ruling on expert witnesses, it's called Daubert, where they challenge the experts. She made a ruling on that, and XRP holders got a big victory in that one, by the way. But she ruled on that, and she's had a case where a month after that ruling, she's decided summary judgment. She's had a case where 2 months after that ruling, she's decided summary judgment. And she's had a case where it's only been a week. So we're in that zone now. We're about 5 weeks from the time that she decided that expert issue. That's why I say if we look at her historical history, then we're waiting for decision any time now. May 6th would put us at the 60-day mark. So I think it'll come down before then, but I'm completely guessing because I don't know where her schedule is. I don't know how many other cases she has. I don't know how many decisions. But I will tell you this, Ash, a lot of people are anxious because of this decision. And I went on record to say, think about the pressure that this decision is. This isn't just about XRP anymore, right? You have 15 amicus briefs, Digital Chamber of Commerce, Coinbase, XRP holders, 70,000 plus that we filed, TapJets, which accepts XRP as a currency, iRemit accepts XRP as a currency, and then dozens of others, a dozen other projects, like I said, that or entities that said to the judge, listen, a big lot is riding on your decision. You could be handing down the most significant non-fraud SEC enforcement case since the Howey decision in 1946. This impacts global trade and finance like no other decision previous, Judge. And so there's a lot riding on it. And I think that she's taking her time. She's historically been a good judge. A lot of people think that because she was appointed by Obama, that therefore she thinks one way. I don't put a lot into that. I think that you base her on her decisions in the past. She has smacked the government down in previous cases when she saw overreach, and I'm hoping we're going to witness that soon. So that's where we are.